I think the range of experience which these gentlemen bring to this board will help us to evaluate the whole structure of the Board of Public Works and to recommend some revision to extend to the public at large the kind of service that is fair and equal to all. We are concerned that major construction firms get the kind of treatment that's going to expedite projects for them. But at the same time, I've indicated to these gentlemen, we want every citizen of this community who has to deal with City Hall to have the same kind of treatment, that their projects, their efforts will be expedited just as though they were a multi-million-dollar corporation. To announce the appointment. Today I am submitting the names of a group of men to be appointed to the Board of Public Works. You may recall that we have a screening committee that is working on a whole list of recommendations to the various commissions. Inasmuch as the Board of Public Works is the only full-time board and is more staff than is the usual commission, we have moved outside of that particular screening committee for these appointments. I want to start to my right and identify the gentleman for you. Mr. Ernest Webber, who has been a member of the board for some time, since 1961. Mr. Warren Hollier, who has been a member of my city council staff and has a considerable background in the field of construction prior to coming on city council staff, will be one of the other members. To my left, Mr. Saul Marcus, businessman, former president of the Hudson Company, was an executive with Carl Schutz, is a consultant to a number of firms, and is a CPA.
No.
Oh.
I'm not, sir.
I'm sorry. Worked for a CPA firm as a consultant. David Lozano, who is a deputy probation officer and has considerable experience in the field of administration in the direction which they have been given. And I fully expect that they're going to do an outstanding job for this city. You will notice that there is a fifth member who has not yet been named. That individual is out of the city and was not available today, so we will have a further announcement for you on that party sometime next week. Mr. Webber has been serving for the past year as the president of that board, represents the kind of experience that we'd like to retain for the purpose of transition. Furthermore, has been highly regarded by various members of the City Council, and also, in our experience with him, I think has done a good job. He is also highly recommended by many of the interests that are going to be directly affected, all the way from organized labor to the business community itself.
How about the changes that you want to see in the way the board operates?
I have asked that they go in and take a complete look at the board and its various bureaus as to how they operate, and to have carte blanche in terms of recommending to me what changes ought to be made. Mr. Saul Marcus, for example, has been an expert in this field of reorganizing old businesses and establishing new ones. And I think his experience is going to be invaluable to us as we assess the entire operation of that board.
What ends and objectives do you have in making changes? What is it that you see about the board that's been constituted that you don't like?
Well, I've asked, for example, to have a look at the duplication that now exists, where this board maintains its own personnel bureau, maintains other duplicating kinds of activities. We want to look at the whole question of how we can get better productivity out of the various bureaus and all city employees who are employed in that department.
What can you tell us?
No problem. As you well know, the procedure here is to submit nominees, and once they are confirmed by the city council, the old commissioners are terminated and the new ones take office.
As an offer,
Industries was, when it existed, a company owning the Hudson Shoe Company and presumably was on the road to becoming a conglomerate. It failed in its efforts at that particular time, and the company now no longer exists.
Well, I can only give you some of the initial discussion there. It was a question about what steps need to be taken, what answers are required, and the CAO, the city attorney, have advised as to the steps which they have taken to comply with the Cost of Living Council. They requested certain information, and we have provided that and have submitted a letter giving the facts and details as to why that salary increase was recommended and finally authorized by the City Council.
The 75% figure that was used after the freeze went into effect seemed to me not to be very good public relations as far as the public is concerned, since the figure was so high. What are your feelings? That type of increase was at a point in time.
I think the real argument comes over whether or not over the course of the last 8 years, when there was no salary increase, if not only were they entitled to the intervening increases that had come in terms of the cost of living, but also to take into account the accumulation of what increases might have been justified if, in fact, say 8 years ago or 7 years ago, they'd been given a 5.5% increase, and each subsequent year the increase had been added to that. I think those are the major arguments that are being raised. We've simply sent a letter indicating the facts of the case, and those facts will now be discussed by staff and by the board, and they will make the determination.
Ready?
In light of the serious unemployment problems in the Southern California area and in connection with the depressed state of the economy, I'm very pleased to report a new development in connection with a motion which I introduced in the Council in August of this year. I propose that we ask President Nixon to appoint a joint reconversion board made up of representatives from each level of government, from industry, from organized labor, and from the universities. The purpose of such a board would be to review the possibilities of reconversion of the aerospace industry, the technology and the resources there, to deal with our city problems. It would take advantage of that great pool of manpower and brains to deal with many of the serious problems that we face here in the cities. Only this week, I finally received word from the president through his assistant, John Ehrlichman, who is in charge of domestic affairs, indicating that the president had asked him to arrange for Bob Finch, the counselor to the president, to get together with me for the purpose of working out details of this particular proposal. I expect within a very few days to have such a discussion with Mr. Finch, and hopefully to arrange with a number of representatives from the industry in this area to meet with us for the purpose of talking about the details of such a plan.
Mr. Bradley, just what would that reconversion board do?
By this reconversion?
Well, we understand there are 250,000 unemployed in Los Angeles County alone. That's a pretty serious number. I cannot tell you what the total number is in Southern California. One of the reasons that we talked about Southern California rather than the city or the county of Los Angeles is that we believe that our problems and our resources are unique here in Southern California, and it shouldn't be dealt with on a national level, and certainly cannot be dealt with solely on the basis of one city.
So you feel that the reconversion board could provide